Imagine a place where you can cross more than 10 countries in a single day without boarding a plane, or a city where dying is illegal, or even an island where time literally goes backward. Sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? But this is our planet. Earth is way stranger than you think, and today you'll discover 25 geographic facts so absurd they'll make you question everything you thought you knew about the world we live in. But before we begin our journey through the bizarre world of geography, if you enjoy mind-blowing content packed with knowledge, help me out. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any fascinating facts. Ever imagined a place where dying is considered illegal? In Longyearbyen, Norway, the northernmost city in the world, it's literally forbidden to die. Yes, you heard that right. This small settlement of about 2,000 inhabitants has this bizarre law because they discovered bodies don't decompose in the local permafrost. In 1950, they realized that victims of the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic were still preserved and potentially infectious. So if you're dying in Longyearbyen, they'll have to transport you to the mainland. A law nobody can obey, but exists nonetheless. Lesotho is a country completely surrounded by South Africa, an enclave as geographers call it. But what you might not know is that inside Lesotho there's a region that belongs to South Africa. That's right. This area called Clarence is technically part of South Africa, but it's inside Lesotho, which is inside South Africa. It's practically a geopolitical Russian nesting doll. If you enter this area, you'll be leaving one country to enter another, without crossing any external border. Geography freestyle. The border between Belgium and the Netherlands, near the town of Barl, is so confusing that there are houses where you eat breakfast in Belgium and use the bathroom in the Netherlands. But the absurdity doesn't stop there. Part of the border between these countries follows the course of the Meuse River, which naturally changes over time. This means that, technically, the border between the two countries is constantly shifting. Ever thought about waking up one day to discover your house changed countries overnight? Well, this actually happens, and the locals seem pretty relaxed about it. The International Date Line is an imaginary line in the Pacific Ocean that marks where a new day begins. And this creates very strange situations. The Diomede Islands in Nordamerika, the Bering Strait are separated by just 2.4 miles. Big Diomede belongs to Russia, while Little Diomede belongs to the USA. But besides belonging to different countries, they're in different days. Due to the International Date Line, when it's Sunday on the American island, it's already Monday on the Russian island. Locals affectionately call them the islands of yesterday and tomorrow. Literally, you can see the future by looking across. In the middle of the Peruvian Amazon rainforest, there's a river that boils. Literally, the Shanai Timpishka River, also known as La Bomba, reaches temperatures of almost 212 degrees Fahrenheit. This is no exaggeration. The water is so hot that any animal that falls in dies instantly, cooked. Scientists discovered that geological faults cause hot water to rise from deep within the earth. And the most bizarre part, there are small organisms that manage to live in these boiling waters. Because apparently, life always finds a way, even in the middle of a hot river. In 1948, a group of children founded their own micronation in Italy called the Republic of Cospaya, after an error in a treaty between the papacy and Florence left this small piece of land ownerless. For almost 300 years, this mini-republic of less than 5,400 square feet existed without laws, taxes, or government. The inhabitants took advantage of this legal vacuum to grow tobacco, which was prohibited in neighboring territories. The micronation only ended in 1826 when the Pope finally annexed the territory. To this day, the former flag of Cospaya displays the motto Perpetua et firma libertas, perpetual and firm freedom, an anarchist paradise created by a calculation error. There's a small hut at the South Pole that houses what is officially the most isolated bathroom on planet Earth. This lonely toilet is more than 1,500 miles from the nearest human settlement. To reach it, you'd need to traverse some of the most extreme weather conditions on the planet, with temperatures dropping to 76 degrees Fahrenheit. Literally, the loneliest place to do your business. And you thought it was bad when you run out of toilet paper in your bathroom. Istanbul, Turkey, is the only city in the world that sits on two different continents simultaneously, Europe and Asia. The fascinating thing is that you can literally cross from the European continent to the Asian one by subway. The Marmaray tunnel passes under the Bosphorus Strait and connects the two sides of the city. Technically, you can have breakfast in Europe and lunch in Asia without even needing a passport. It's the only metropolis in the world where you can say, "I'm going to another continent," and get there in 15 minutes by public transport. Mount Everest, the world's highest mountain, is still growing approximately 16 inches per year due to the continuous movement of tectonic plates. But here's the really crazy part. The world's highest mountain technically isn't Everest. If we measure from the center of the Earth, the highest peak is Mount Chimborazo in Ecuador. This happens because Earth isn't a perfect sphere. It's wider at the equator. So even though it's lower in absolute altitude, Chimborazo is farther from the center of the planet. Geography. 1. Common sense. 0. São Paulo, Brazil, has more pizzerias than all of Italy. Yes, you heard that right. The Brazilian city has over 6,000 establishments specializing in pizza, while all of Italy has around 5,000. São Paulo produces approximately 1 million pizzas per day, and more. The city consumes 1.4 million pizzas every Sunday. It's as if each São Paulo resident ate an entire pizza monthly. Mamma mia, that's a lot of pizza. There's a ghost island called Bermeja that appeared on maps of the Gulf of Mexico since the 16th century. The problem, it no longer exists. Or maybe it never existed. In 2009, the Mexican government sent a ship to investigate the location where the island should be, but found absolutely nothing. Some believe the island sank due to an earthquake. Others suspect it was a cartographic invention to expand territorial waters. The disappearance of the island even generated conspiracy theories, suggesting that the US destroyed it to gain rights over oil reserves in the region. A ghost island in the middle of the ocean, geographically speaking, that's pretty scary. In eastern Indonesia, the Kawah Ijen volcano does something that seems straight out of a sci-fi movie. It spews bright blue lava. Actually, the lava itself isn't blue. What happens is that the volcano has high concentrations of sulfur that, when burned, emit blue flames. Since this happens continuously, at night it looks like rivers of blue lava are flowing down the mountain. The effect is so surreal that it looks like a scene from Avatar. And yes, people actually visit this place to see the spectacle, despite the toxic gases the volcano releases. Sometimes, beauty is worth the risk. The youngest country on the planet is South Sudan, which became independent on July 9, 2011. What makes this even more interesting is that the region went through one of the longest civil wars in modern history before achieving independence, lasting over 22 years. This means there are many young South Sudanese adults who never knew peace until their country was created. Imagine being born in a country that didn't even exist when your parents were born. This is reality for an entire generation in South Sudan. In Osaka, Japan, there's a building with a highway running through the middle of it. The Gate Tower building has a hole between the 5th and 7th floors, where the Hanshin Expressway literally passes through the building. The road and the building are separate entities. The highway technically rents that space and doesn't touch the building structure. The most incredible part? Despite 5,000 cars passing through the building daily, the sound insulation is so good that workers on adjacent floors barely notice the noise. Japanese urbanism. When you can't go around, go through. In Australia, there's a town called Coober Pedy, where half of the 3,500 inhabitants live underground. Due to the extreme heat of the Australian desert, which can exceed 122 degrees Fahrenheit, local residents, many of them opal miners, have dug their homes, hotels, restaurants, and even churches underground, where the temperature stays at a pleasant 73 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. Some of these underground residences are true mansions with multiple rooms, all below the surface. It's literally a city of hobbits in the 21st century. Geneva International Airport in Switzerland has a unique feature. Part of it is in France. The airport has a French sector with its own customs and passport control. The most curious thing, this sector is technically French territory, but managed by the Swiss. So, when landing in Geneva, you can choose to exit through either the Swiss or French side of the airport, depending on where you want to go. Imagine missing your flight because you were in the wrong country inside the same airport. This actually happens. On the coast of New Zealand, there's a walking forest. Slope Point is the southernmost point of the South Island, where Antarctic winds are so strong and constant that trees grow completely tilted, almost parallel to the ground. From a distance, it looks like the entire forest is moving, as if trying to escape the wind. The trees are so uniformly deformed that they create an alien landscape. The force of these winds is so intense that local farmers had to build special shelters for their sheep, which would otherwise be literally blown away. No wonder they filmed The Lord of the Rings there. The landscape naturally looks like another world. The small island of Market is divided between Finland and Sweden, but the strangest thing is the island's lighthouse. Originally, the entire island belonged to Sweden, but when the Finns built a lighthouse there in 1885, the Swedes realized it was on their territory. To solve the problem without moving the lighthouse, the countries redrew the border in an absurdly complicated way, creating a zigzag line. The result? As you walk around the lighthouse, you cross the international border several times. A ranger, who maintains the site, changes countries approximately 3 times during his daily rounds. And the best part, he doesn't even need a passport. In Namibia's desert, sand dunes literally reach the Atlantic Ocean, creating one of the world's most impressive geographical contrasts. In the region known as the Skeleton Coast, enormous reddish-orange sand dunes abruptly meet the blue waters of the ocean. There's no gradual transition. It's desert on one side and ocean on the other, separated by just a few feet. The phenomenon is so rare that it attracts tourists from around the world to see the place where 2 of the planet's most distinct environments meet as unlikely neighbors. Imagine dying of heat in the sand and being able to dive into the ocean with just a few steps. There's a waterfall underwater near the island of Mauritius. Seems impossible, right? How can there be a waterfall underwater? What happens is an optical illusion created by currents of sand and sediment flowing from an underwater plateau, creating the visual effect of an underwater waterfall. Seen from above, it really looks like the ocean is falling into a giant hole. It's one of the most photographed phenomena on the planet and makes you doubt your own eyes. Nature sometimes seems to be just playing with the laws of physics. Lake Natron in Tanzania is so alkaline, pH up to 10.5, and salty that it literally petrifies animals that die in its waters. The lake water is rich in minerals that, when evaporated, cover the bodies of dead animals with a calcareous crust, turning them into macabre statues. Photographer Nick Brandt became famous for his photos of these petrified animals, which seem to have been instantly turned to stone. Interestingly, despite being lethal to most creatures, the lake is the preferred breeding site for lesser flamingos, which manage to survive in the extreme conditions. Apparently, even Medusa would be jealous of this lake. The Hotel Arbès Franco-Suisse is located exactly on the border between France and Switzerland, so precisely that the international line passes through the middle of the restaurant, the living room, and even some bedrooms. This means you can dine in France but have dessert in Switzerland without leaving the table, or sleep with your head in Switzerland and your feet in France. During World War II, when Germany occupied France, the Swiss part of the hotel remained neutral, creating surreal situations where refugees could escape by literally staying on the other side of the hallway. A hotel where you can change countries simply by rolling over in bed. There's a town called Eulogy in the American state of Kansas that appears on various maps and GPS systems, but which actually doesn't exist. Created by cartographers as a trap town to identify map plagiarism, Eulogy was included in so many maps over the years that some people actually try to visit it, only to find empty fields. Even more bizarre, there are dozens of these ghost towns on maps around the world, purposely placed as cartographic watermarks. You might be planning a trip to a place that never existed. On the border between Poland and Ukraine, there's a forest where the trees are crooked. The crooked forest of Grafino contains approximately 400 pine trees whose trunks make a 90-degree curve near the base before straightening again. Nobody knows exactly why the trees grew this way. Some theories suggest they were shaped by humans in the 1930s to make pre-molded furniture, or that they were crushed by tanks during World War II. The most interesting thing is that the same anomaly occurs in trees on both sides of the border, suggesting that whatever the cause, it doesn't respect political boundaries. Apparently, trees have their own international treaty. Point Nemo is the most remote location on the entire planet Earth, so isolated that the closest people are often astronauts. Located in the South Pacific Ocean, this is the point farthest from any landmass on the planet. It's 1,670 miles from the nearest coast. To get an idea, when the International Space Station passes over Point Nemo, the astronauts on board are literally closer to this point than any other person on Earth. It's so remotely perfect that space agencies frequently use this area to dispose of satellites and space stations at the end of their useful life. At the bottom of the ocean, near Point Nemo, there's a spacecraft cemetery with more than 300 pieces of space debris. Literally, the loneliest place on the planet. So, which of these facts left you most jaw-dropped? Comment below and tell me, which of these curiosities you'll use to impress your friends at the next barbecue? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share with your friends who also love discovering how our Earth is much stranger than it seems. Thanks for watching this far. See you in the next video with more mind-blowing facts.